Vladimir Putin is on a Russian suicide mission, it seems. His currency is tanking, his stock market is plummeting, sanctions are crippling his economy, and very powerful people that hold tremendous influence in Russia are turning into social pariahs almost overnight. A quick primer on the oligarchs here for just a moment. When the Soviet Union broke up, the economy turned from government-controlled, completely controlled and owned by the government, to private in a way. The oligarchs were the powerful Russians at the time, maybe about 100 men or so, who scooped up all of the industry during the chaos of the Russian transformation into a private market economy, something that really never did happen. The oligarchs are all billionaires, and they now own Russia, which is why Russia really hasn't improved all that much since the Soviet Union. It's not a fair market. It's fixed in the oligarchs' favor. Everyone else gets boxed out. There's really not any competition to speak of. And the oligarchs are seeing their financial paradise crumble in this moment, and some have actually started to speak out. In a rare move, Russian billionaires Mikhail Friedman and Oleg Deripaska have broken ranks with the Kremlin and called for an end to Russia's war in Ukraine. And a very wealthy Russian TV host, a propagandist for Putin, of course, who just lost his villa in beautiful Lake Como, Italy, was complaining about it on television in Russia.
With every transaction, I was bringing paperwork, demonstrating my official salary, income. I did it all. I bought it, paid crazy amounts of taxes. I did everything. And suddenly, someone makes a decision that this journalist is on a list of sanctions, and right away, it affects your real estate. Wait a minute, but you told us that Europe has sacred property rights.
You earned it, scumbag. In Spain, a Ukrainian boat mechanic, and maybe my favorite story of the day, actually sank the yacht of a man that he says is a top Russian arms exporter and ally of Vladimir Putin. There's the boat right there. He dropped it down. The 55-year-old Ukrainian telling the judge after he was arrested in Mallorca that he would do it again. It's a great story. Until about 2 weeks ago, the oligarchs of Russia lived a very charmed life. Their kids attended Western universities, homes in the south of France for the summer, their yachts in the Caribbean for winter, Paris for Christmas, the finest restaurants in the world, all the trappings of the billionaire lifestyle we all so envy. And then Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, and the world's response to that has come down on Putin's enablers just as much as it's come down on him himself. Oligarchs are very easy to identify. If you see a billionaire Russian guy with a yacht, you can almost be assured that's probably an oligarch. That's a Putin enabler right there. And they're now labeled public enemy number one. The oligarchs have no desire to stay in Russia year-round. It's not that great of a place to live. These people love all the trappings of the West and to travel and spend money. Russia is really just their piggy bank. But what happens if the oligarchs get canceled by Western society, as is happening right now? If these guys show up in Capri this summer, they could find nobody wants to take their dirty money. People throwing drinks in their faces, insulting them. And the only way to be welcomed back into the society that they love so much will be forcing Vladimir Putin out of power and ending this utterly ridiculous invasion. In the meantime, this is destroying the lives of the innocent Russian people as well. Those who live under Putin's ridiculous government, live under his boot. The same people protesting, even though it means some serious jail time. Some of the bravest people around are Russians that are protesting this war. Scenes like this we're finding all over, a run on the banks, the Russian people lining up across their country, desperate for cash and trying to get out as much money as they can while they still can, even though the ruble is tanking hard. And then there's Putin's military strategy. With his invasion of Ukraine going slower than expected, many are saying Putin is getting desperate, and those around him may be starting to notice. There's also speculation, of course, that we're dealing with a crazy person who may be dying. Take a look at the reaction on his generals' faces when he told them he was putting the country's nuclear forces on high alert. Look at the guy on the right. An escalation toward an outcome that could kill millions of people over Ukraine? Conquering Ukraine? Do they look confident in their leader as they sit 40 feet away? Because Putin is evidently deathly afraid of getting COVID. These are the men who are hopefully conspiring with the oligarchy behind the scenes to do something about this insanity, perhaps planning a coup to save their own country and save Ukraine as well. And if they have any common sense, you'd like to think there are whispers like that happening all throughout the country in places of power tonight. Putin has agreed to peace talks with Ukraine. They started today, but at the same time has a large convoy of Russian ground forces just outside Kiev. We're told it could be dozens of miles long. It could be as many as 30 or 40 miles long. A convoy moving in. They don't want to lose. The fight has been much rougher than expected. Putin may seem undeterred because he hasn't found an exit ramp that lets him save face. Perhaps he wants to get out, but he can't just be the loser. He's not going to let that happen. He'd rather wreck his country than pull troops out and lose a war with Ukraine. And that's why a coup is exactly what the Russian people need. Putin today showed his utter disdain for the West, the man who called the end of the Soviet communist empire the greatest tragedy of the 20th century. You know what he thinks of the West, saying this to his economic advisors.
Talking about the sanctions which the so-called Western community, as I called it in my speech, an empire of lies, tries to realize against our country.
Well, that's him. Many say Putin has been planning this invasion for years, stashing money away since he annexed Crimea, and with high oil prices, he's made a lot of money in the last year or so. Many in the intel community, though, also debating whether or not this man has just gone mad. Is he dying? Is it all over for him and this is his last hurrah? We don't really know. But if you ask the Democrat Socialists of America, the real reason this is happening is NATO and the spread of imperialism, they say. Saying, quote, DSA reaffirms our call for the U.S. to withdraw from NATO and to end the imperialist expansionism that set the stage for this conflict. Now, it's not surprising. Imperialism is code for capitalism to them. Capitalism and freedom. That's what they really hate that NATO spreads. It shouldn't surprise anyone. The likes of Bernie Sanders and AOC took this stance. These are the people who blame Israel for defending itself against an onslaught of air bombs fired at innocent people. So naturally, they're going to blame a peacekeeping alliance designed to protect freedom for Vladimir Putin's ridiculous crusade. In the end, those two have more in common with Putin. Bernie and AOC would love to see the reemergence of the Soviet Union. Their paradise, hundreds of millions of people living in equitable poverty, just as long as they get to sit at the top, right? It mirrors their plans for this country as well. So what is Putin really thinking?